Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. I hope all you mothers had a great day yesterday. I know I had a great day visiting my mom with my youngest daughter. She was more than pleasantly surprised. Anyway, today I've got a couple of Dogman encounters, a Deerman encounter, and a possible Skinwalker encounter. Ugh. We all know how I despise Skinwalkers. Just the creepiest cryptid out there, if you ask me. Anyway, before we get on with these encounters, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below, as well as my second channel, which is for creepypasta, fan fiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also, a while back, started a GoFundMe page to help raise some money for urban exploration, cryptid hunting, and ghost hunting equipment. These are videos that I'm going to be doing very soon. I'm starting to feel a little better, but it's still raining in upstate New York. I swear, we have 1 day of sunshine, 4 days of rain. Anyway, enough of the jibber jabber. Let's get on with these Dogman, Deerman, possible Skinwalker encounters. Shall we? Today's first encounter brings us to Kansas. I live in a small rural town in Kansas that is very still at night, and on a quiet summer night, I make it a point to take a nightly walk with my dog, and this particular evening in June was no exception. It was dusk, and most of the light was gone as my dog and I entered the yard. I noticed a rustling by the bushes where we buried our beloved pet. I assumed it was a cat or some sort of rodent, but as I scanned the row of bushes, I saw a large humanoid creature with wolf-like features. It was hunched over the pet's grave. Chills ran down my spine and I was frozen where I stood. It turned its head and looked right at me, straight into my eyes, and every hair on my body stood straight up. Within seconds, it ran on 2 feet as it remained slightly hunched over. I have never seen whatever it was since, but I've never again felt completely at ease at night. Today's second Dogman encounter brings us to the woods of Wisconsin. My name will remain anonymous, and I live in a little town by the name of Alberta, located in Wisconsin. I don't have any degrees or a PhD. I'm just a retired simple man that likes going out in the woods and do some plant studies on my own. I know a little bit about botany, and I enjoy its study. That's all. I like to consider myself a man of science, though, and I tend to look for explanations for every little thing. But what happened to me a few years ago on one of my short trips, that, well, I can't explain. I wonder if you guys could shed some light on this subject. My family does not believe me. Please excuse my writing and grammar as I'm not the best at it. That day I went out earlier than usual in the morning. It was about 5 a.m. when I grabbed my backpack consisting of 1 sandwich, botanical books, a notebook, and a pencil. I like carrying my shotgun as well, even though it gets pretty uncomfortable after a while. But I do bring it with me every time I go into the woods. My day was pretty productive, and I drew a few plants in my notebook. But it was after 8 a.m. that I realized I had forgot to bring water with me. That was a huge mistake. I know a little source of water, a spring nearby that carries clean, drinkable water. I decided to go there. Once I reached the spring, I was relieved to see clean water flowing through it. I left my backpack on the ground and bent over to drink some off my hands. I was very thirsty and drank as much as I could. As I stepped back from the water and reached for my backpack, I heard a strange sound that reminded me of a howl. Only it sounded like a creature in pain and not like a wolf trying to communicate. I didn't pay much attention to it, since you can hear about anything here in the woods if you concentrate hard enough, so I decided to head back home. On my way back, I began to think, what if that howl was actually a person asking for help? What if I ignored the cries of a human being crying to be heard? That's what made me go back to the spring. I started blaming myself for not having thought about this earlier and thinking about how that person could be dead by now. If it could be a hunter or an old person. When I got to the spring, I stayed still, nearby, trying to hear the sound again. I screamed out, asking to see if anybody was there. I went around the spring in circles, looking for this person, hoping to find someone lying on the floor. I was kind of relieved. Maybe, after all, it was just an animal howling or some tree branch making a funny crackling noise. I called again, just in case. Nothing, not a sound, only the water flowing down the rocks. I became hungry, so I sat down next to the water to eat my sandwich. Again, kind of relieved that I had all been a false alarm. But it hadn't been a false alarm. I dropped half of my sandwich in the water. The howl happened again. Only this time it was more of a human cry. No doubt it was a male human crying out. Loud. An adult, a very loud cry. It made the hairs on the back of my neck stand straight up. I started running towards the sound. Hold on, I'm coming. You okay? All I could see was branches of bushes and trees hitting me in the sides of my face and scratching my arms. Then I saw it. It was there, sitting down in the middle of an opening. A human figure. He then started moving fast. Movement that I had never seen in a human. Almost like spasms, only faster, shakier. I realized it wasn't a he, but an it. It stood on its hind legs, and I could see the outside of the body was hairless, like a human, whereas the inside was hairy like an animal. It was silver hair, white on its chest. No sexual organs anywhere. The head started to take shape. It had two distinctive wolf-like ears and a long snout, long canines showing on the sides up and down like a hog. The eyes were brown or black, very dark. It then growled, and I had to admit I was freaked out by then. I reached for my shotgun, not to shoot it, but to scare it away with a shot in the air. When I realized I had left it back by the water spring, I was defenseless and standing next to the creature I had never seen before. I thought if I started running, it would chase me down, so I stood still, quiet, trying not to stare it into the eyes so it wouldn't find me challenging, as dogs often do. That's when it approached me close enough to smell it. It put its snout up to my head and sniffed my eyes and nose. Its eyes connected with mine, and I wasn't able to gaze away this time. I could feel its pain. The creature was in pain, but also you could feel its anger. I couldn't stand it anymore. I started screaming. It then left running on four legs. I urinated my pants, literally, I did. I was surprised it had not tail, and the rear end looked like a human butt, to be honest. I stood there for a few more minutes, making sure it had gone for good. Then I went back for my backpack and shotgun and headed home. It was the weirdest day of my life. Today's third encounter is a Deerman encounter from Alberta. Meeting Creek, a small hamlet with a population of only 21. Though this small, sleepy corner of society in central Alberta was home of a sighting that its residents wish it never took part of. Meeting Creek is located off just Highway 56, and it's something that looks like a living version of a Rockwell painting. Though on the night of August 21st, 2018, as the sun began to rise up in the sky and erase the unknown darkness that is the night, as there are breathtaking sights to see by means of scenery, I spoke with a retired librarian who wanted her name omitted from the article out of fear of ridicule by those around her. Seeing something like a Deerman would make one appear a tad bit off. This isn't anything new, as many of those who have seen Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster have gone through their fair share of ridicule. It was an early morning, and she awoke to her routine of making herself a pot of coffee and her breakfast. Though she lived alone, she never felt scared, but when that moment came on that fateful day, when only but a double glass pane window separated her from what could only be described as a creature not of this world. While she looked out her window as the coffee was brewing, there standing just a few yards away was the Deerman. She recalled it standing perfectly still like a statue. Their eyes were locked and neither one of them were blinking. And before she knew it, the creature slowly made its way to the window. Its non-blinking eyes were almost hypnotic, as she described. But as the bond was made, it quickly cut off as it turned around and began to make its way back to where it came from. But not before taking a few crab apples from her tree. Ever since then, she has continued to wake up at the same time every single day in hopes of catching a glimpse of what she said was the most majestic animal she had ever seen. She never felt fear like the others who reported their encounters with the Deerman. But maybe the Deerman isn't that bad after all. Maybe it's just misunderstood. Who honestly knows? Today's fourth and final encounter is a possible Skinwalker or unidentified cryptid. You guys be the judge. I want to preface this with the fact that I did not get a good look at what we encountered. I saw a glimpse, and I don't want to make any assumptions on what it may or may not have been. Two of my friends and I used to be stationed at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, and we decided a Memorial Day camping weekend would be a great idea, so we took a trip up to Manju Peak outside of Reduso, New Mexico. We planned to stay for 3 nights, the first 2 of which were very relaxing. On our first day there, when deciding where to set up our tent, we found loads of bones from various animals. Not mounded up or anything, like they were collected, just bones all around the campsite. The campsite had 5 places to pitch tents over about 300 square meters. We decided to pitch our tents on the highest point at the campsite, about 30 to 40 feet in elevation higher than the parking lot. On the 3rd night, it was well after sunset when all the noise from the woods died out. I'm not sure how long it was silent before me and my friends broached the subject, but it wasn't long after that the hair on the back of my neck started to stand, followed by goosebumps all over. I could see my friends starting to get jittery. From one of the other campsites, we heard their 2 dogs going absolute ape crap. These were very relaxed and happy dogs for the last 2 days. We had also made decent acquaintances with the couple who had the dogs, and they had lunch with us on day 2. The other 2 groups that were camping at the same time had gone silent as well. The car was about 60 meters from our campsite, and we honestly decided to go get our guns, AR-15s and 9mm pistols. On our way back, we started to smell a rotting, wretched stench. I don't know if anyone has ever had burned feces before, but it smelled like a mix of death and that. It was cloying and felt like it was almost physical. It was so strong. We got back to our campsite and decided to post guard all through the night. 1 man up and 2 asleep, or at least resting. I volunteered for the first shift because I knew I wasn't getting any rest at all. We had plenty of firewood for the night, especially because we were leaving that next morning. I kept the fire blazing as much as I could because I figured that if it was some sort of animal, it wouldn't be too interested in messing with me. I kept my back to the fire so I could maintain good night vision. See, I'm going to lay out the layout of the land. Once you get into the tree line, it's very steep, not impassable by any means, but not somewhere you need to be walking at night. Behind the trees, I start noticing a stark white shape. I shouldered my rifle, and it didn't move at all. I assumed it was a partially hidden tree behind another. I started scanning the tree line with a flashlight because I felt the stench was stronger than before. As my beam passed over what I thought was an obscure tree, I saw eye shine from the white shape. As soon as I registered what I was seeing, it disappeared behind a tree. I debated investigating, but instead just roused my friends, and we scanned together. When my shift ended, I took off my rainfly on my tent so I could see out if needed. I didn't see anything on my next shift, just the smell. The next morning, just before dawn broke, the smell seemed to recede, but only so much, almost like it left the scent as a warning was impressed on us. We broke camp and started packing up. About halfway through our breakdown, we saw another group of 3 hikers packing up as well. I went over and talked to the couple with the dogs, asking them if they saw anything last night, or if their dogs calmed down after barking stopped. They told me that even when they stopped barking, the dogs didn't sleep. They spent the night whining and growling in the direction of the hill to the southwest. One thing I do find interesting is the eye shine doesn't happen with humans or primates due to the lack of tapetum lucidum in our eyes. Well, there we go. 4 amazing encounters. Possible Skinwalker, Deerman, and 2 Dogman. The Skinwalker encounter, it was definitely freaky to me. 3 military personnel going on a camping trip. Fully loaded and ready to go, and this guy's still scared, even though he's doing everything right for his safety. Back against the fire, shifts, and weapons. Everything just points to Skinwalker for me on that one. I don't know about you guys. The Deerman encounter, amazing. You know, we get a whole new look at this creature. Just like Dogman, we get a whole new look at Dogman every once in a while, you know. Everyone's like, oh, this creature is evil. It's you know, maybe they're just trying to figure out what we are. I mean, we don't know how intelligent these things are. We just know from what the stories we've heard. And from what we've heard, they are fairly intelligent. So maybe they're trying to figure out what the hell we are and why we're encroaching on their land. The Dogman encounter with the gentleman doing his botany research and getting face to face with him, smelling him. Right there is another perfect example of a Dogman not being aggressive. It was hurt, possibly something was wrong, and it just wanted to figure out what the hell we were. Once the gentleman started yelling, it took off. Just 4 amazing encounters. I love them. I love every cryptid encounter, actually. Yeah, I can never get enough. Thinking about doing some UFO encounters very soon. I want to know what you guys think of that. I don't know if you guys will like it, but I've got some really cool ones. Tomorrow, I've got an amazing subscriber lineup. From Dogman, Deerman, stick figure. You name it, I've got it, and I'm going to share it. Anyway, with that, guys, I bid you farewell.